What's up guys, I'm Zach and welcome back to Workshop Edits and welcome to my brand new build series where I take you through from start to finish building this tiny office in my backyard. Now I know that this building might look small, but in reality this was a massive solo undertaking for me. Many weekends, late nights, early mornings, and everything in between. Tackling what I consider to be familiar DIY challenges, but with constant research and learning and implementing new practices for a ton of skills that I have personally never done before. Now I cover everything in this build. I really tried to leave no detail out. So you're gonna see my successes, my failures, all of my learnings. You're gonna hear me say a lot of in my own research, because pretty much at every step I was doing at least one thing new that I had never done before. So I hope that the detail and the inspiration that you pull from this is both entertaining, but can also serve as an inspiration and an overall hub for people who are unfamiliar with a lot of the things that I do in this video, much like I was, and find that inspiration to tackle a project like this, knowing that you are going to struggle through certain things and find a ton of success along the way. Now, I'm sure that I'm gonna get this question a couple of times in the comments, but this probably took me about 300 hours in total between designing, researching, Home Depot and Lowe's trips, building, filming, and editing. So again, a pretty substantial undertaking over the past 3 months. Just a couple of quick things about the building. It is about 65 square feet. It cost me about $5,500 in materials all in. Yes, materials are kind of expensive these days still. And it took me 33, that's right, 33 trips to Lowe's and Home Depot. And while that might sound inefficient, the reality is this project took me about 3 months to do, and there was so many new things for me to learn along the way that it just would not have been physically possible to order everything and buy everything at once. And while, again, it might sound inefficient, I actually embraced going to Home Depot or Lowe's and picking up the materials that I needed, implementing those into the project, and then doing my next set of research to then continue on with the project at each step. So in this first video, we're gonna be tackling a ton of prep work. That includes things like just figuring out where I wanna put this thing in the backyard, demoing the lawn, capping sprinklers, trenching and running electrical all the way to the back corner of my backyard, and laying the paver foundation for which the overall unit will sit on top of. One thing that I don't call out in the video, but I do wanna call out here, is I'm in an area that is basically a 0-inch frost line. I do not have to worry about the ground freezing. So that is why I'm going with this raised foundation with these block pavers. If you are in an area that has any sort of frost line, you're gonna wanna do your own research and figure out what type of foundation is best for that area so that you don't run into any structural issues down the road. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this build series as much as I enjoyed tackling such a monumental task on my own. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're here in the backyard and I've already started prepping this project, but it's been a lot of boring stuff. So far what we've done is removed a planter box, removed my kids' sandbox to a different part of the yard, cut off a giant branch from this tree, all by hand by the way, because I don't own a chainsaw. Then I've gone ahead and just marked out what I am going to be removing from my overall lawn, and it basically is enough space to house the small office and also works around my existing sprinkler system, and it's just gonna fit perfectly back in this corner once it's all excavated. Man, excavation is really, really hard work. All right, so that is all dug out now. So my electrical panel is right there. And I have a raised foundation house. So what I'm gonna do is run conduit from my box under the house. I'm gonna have it pop out right down there, which is a little tricky because it's near my sprinkler systems, but luckily when I had my backyard, or when I was redoing my backyard a few years ago, I took pictures of where everything was. So what I'm gonna do is essentially run, it's gonna be kind of hard to show. I'm gonna trench all the way to like right there. Then I'm gonna trench along right here, on the outside of the grass, and then I'm just gonna end it right here. And I plan on putting my little sub panel on this side, so the trench is kind of gonna go all the way to sort of where that trash can is, maybe a little bit more in. I did a ton of research on this. I also consulted my friend who's an electrician. So from where I am, which is in Southern California, if you are running 10 to Romex through 3/4 inch conduit, which is what I plan to do, it has to be buried 12 inches down. So we just need to essentially trench 12 inches down. And I'm gonna try to do it here without disrupting this lawn too much. I've seen some techniques where you sort of just separate the ground versus actually dig it up. I'm not sure if it's gonna work with this, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. So on to more hard labor. All right, so I just finished running a trench all the way from here along this edge to basically right there. I was doing a bunch of research and it was kind of confusing me. I was reading that if you're doing PVC conduit, you need to be at least 12 inches deep. And then I was reading some NEC guidelines, which said 18 inches, and that's like way deeper than I think I can like realistically dig by myself in my backyard without like destroying it. Then I read that you only need to be 6 inches down if you use metal conduit, so I'm switching to that. I'm gonna pause on that right now because I'm waiting for my Romex to come in. I have all of the conduit that I'm gonna need, but I wanna do all that in one fell swoop in terms of like going under the house, measuring, running the cable and everything, and because I don't have that, I'm also not just gonna start this little section down, where is it, here, over here, where I'm just gonna try to divide the yard in half and just drop the conduit in there because it's not super deep. I think it's gonna be way easier. So now that that's done, I've just finished grading this whole area, basically just making it flat, like it's not totally level. I'm gonna start laying out my 6 footings exactly where I want them to be. Then I'm gonna dig like 4 to 6 inches down for each one of them so that I can compact 3/4 inch gravel, which I have back here. I was reading that you want like 4 to 6 inches for like an elevated shed with these types of concrete raised blocks with pressure treated wood and all of that. So I'm just gonna start laying things out, and then I'm gonna mark an area with a shovel that's probably like 50% larger than that, so I have some wiggle room in case I don't totally like where I am. But I figure that's gonna be a lot of excavation, so I might as well get that done while I wait for the rest of the materials to come in. All right, I just finished digging out all 6 of the holes for the footings. My yard definitely slopes from that back corner towards my house. There's no like drainage issues or anything, but I dug these ones in the front just a little bit more shallow than the ones in the back. I then kind of raked and smoothed everything out, and then I used my hand tamper just to really compact the dirt there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add like 4 to 6 inches of gravel and tamp that down in each of the spots. I'm gonna just temporarily place then the footings in each of the places. And right now I don't have the lumber to actually like build the base framing of it to get them perfectly lined up and make sure everything's level, but I'm just gonna go ahead and get as far as I can. And then once I get the lumber in place after I've finished doing the conduit, then I can get everything perfectly level and add gravel and remove gravel and tamp it down further and make sure everything is as compact as possible and also completely flat in both directions. All right, so we're gonna fast forward a little bit. You saw in the previous clip, I threw up the line laser, and what I did is just I went around with that little green plate and I marked, you probably can't see it, this little tiny grid, and what I basically did was just find the highest of those stones and then work upward from it. So I just filled in all the spots and re-tamped it down to bring everything up to the same level, and just kind of went through everything, and I've got it pretty straight. I realized using just like a pressure treated 2x6 board is like not the best way to figure out what's straight, because those boards, they'll straighten out once I frame everything up, but man, they're just like not perfectly straight and not the right way to do it. So definitely throwing up the line laser, and I have everything within like, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch, which is like plenty flat enough for me for the sake of this shed. It's all tamped down, feeling really good about it. Now that we have that foundation part done, I'm gonna switch gears from that, go back to finishing trenching here. So I've got, again, this whole thing run to right here, and I've got this awesome shovel. And because I'm using that rigid conduit, I only have to go down 6 inches. So all I'm gonna do is actually just shove this thing into the ground and make a very nice straight line kind of from this corner down here to right there, so I don't damage my grass too much, so that I can have the conduit come out from that part, which leads to the underside of my house, avoiding the sprinklers, which are also about 6 or 7 inches deep. And then I'll just bury the cable there. All right, so next morning I just finished trenching everything. Now I'm moving on to running the conduit under the house. So what I'm doing is laying out the pieces exactly where they need to go so I know that they're the exact length they need to. Now I've never fished Romex through rigid metal conduit. So what I'm gonna do is just fish it through these pieces at least, one at a time, then use the connectors and connect them. That way, at least when I shove this whole piece somehow through that vent underneath the house, it might not be fully connected. The Romex is already through it, and all I need to do is add the little 2-screw U-brackets to fasten that conduit underneath the house, and then it's gonna pop out over there, and then it should be a lot easier to kind of like run the pieces individually and connect them and bend them as I need to reach my final destination point over there. All right, I was trying to avoid this, but I'm gonna have to go under the crawl space a couple of times because I just have no visibility into the underside of my house and everything is just getting stuck. So here we go. So I'm shoving the conduit through the side of the house, and then I'm gonna bring you guys underneath there. I'm gonna bring pretty much everything I need, or as best I can, so I can avoid having to crawl in and out of there a bunch of times because it's pretty tight and unpleasant. Let's do it. I hate this. All right, I've made it over to the other side. So what I'm gonna do is take the conduit, which I have right to my left, right there, and right there is that same vent. I'm just gonna place this pipe right up there, get it fastened in place, get the other one connected, and get the hell out of here. Let this be easy. I got it. It's fastened. Okay, now I just gotta clip a few more. That was awful. So I'll just say push, you pull, and if you're finding that for whatever reason. All right, I think I'm done. That was exhausting. All right, I'm gonna get all of this buried, finish over at the electrical box. I'm gonna fill in all the dirt. I think we could finally get on to building this thing. Ground to ground, neutral to neutral, hot to breaker. Gonna flip that back off for now just to be safe. All right, so I'm in the shop. There's a few small things that I need to finalize before I actually build the platform that the shed will sit on. The main thing is just making sure that the pavers are exactly where they need to be. So in order to do that, what I'm gonna do is cut my 10-foot stretchers that span the width of the shop, cut the 2 outside stretchers that measure the length or the depth of the shop, and build that box square, which essentially will be the entire base of the shed. drop that into the pavers and make sure everything is perfectly lined up so that I can then sort of lock those in place, dump the remainder of the dirt that I excavated out, fill in like all the holes around the pavers. Then I can start to actually build the platform, add all the stretchers, tie it together with strong ties, like all of that kind of stuff. So got to do this like final amount of prep, and then we're on to the full build. I just am so thrilled that that is just perfectly level everywhere. So I just finished laying down landscape fabric, and then I put some gravel that I tamped down on top of it. I read that that is supposed to help with raised foundations and weed prevention for the long term. So we're gonna get going. I'm gonna do everything 12 inches on center. These are 2x6s. I read that that is like plenty of strength for the size of the project that I'm building. And we're just gonna get going. Finally here, super excited. I'm guessing I'm probably gonna get some questions about the actual screws that I'm using for this. I'm using these headlock from Fasten Master. They're supposed to replace 3/8 inch lag screws, and they're meant for structural framing, and they work with pressure treated wood. I'm using 2 per side. They're 3 inches long, and I'm going to also supplement all the joists after I get all of them fastened with some joist hangers, which I found out can support individually up to 400 pounds. So like this thing is gonna be so structurally sound. It's probably overkill, but I'd rather overdo it than underdo it. Also, just specifically for the 4 corners, I got 4 of these really big bad boys just to add that extra strength on the corners. All right, so we just finished doing the joists. Now we're gonna move on to adding some joist hangers. So I got these are like $1 a piece. These are specifically for 2x6s, and because I don't love nailing things, I bought these screws, which I don't know if you can really see, but they are screws that are meant to basically replace nails for joist hangers. So they're gonna do the exact same thing. It's just gonna make it a little bit easier to like quickly run through this because I'm not used to hammering like hundreds of nails. And so we're gonna add these to all of the stretchers in the middle, except for the ones that are sitting on top of the concrete piers. And then we're gonna do these corner pieces for the 4 corners. All right, so I have all of the joist hangers and connectors done on one side. Because my kid isn't here right now, meaning she's not sleeping, I switched gears and I cut a bunch of blocking that I'm now going to add in between all the joists just to firm it up. I'm gonna err on more, at least on these outside pieces, and then I think I'm gonna do just 2 in between each of the other joists. And that should really just kind of finish firming everything up. So I'm gonna do that. And I'm probably gonna get the question also for what I'm using. So I'm just using these structural screws. They're 2.5 inches long. They're coarse thread for pressure treated wood, for exterior, for structure. So I think they're gonna be perfect. All right, got the subfloor all finished. Everything's screwed together. All the joist hangers are on. Feeling really good, very strong, very rigid. So we're gonna move on to doing the subflooring. So I'm gonna be using these multi-material wafer head screws from Spax. They're rated for pressure treated wood, specifically call out being used for subfloors. And additionally, just to make it weather tight, I'm using this extreme heavy duty liquid nails. It says it bonds in extreme temperatures, all weather, bonds to wood, and has specific applications for subfloors, so it should seal it nicely, hold everything together, and prevent squeaks. All right, so that is gonna wrap it up for this episode. Hopefully that was entertaining, insightful, and you learned something along the way. Now, if you are watching these in real time, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that you can be around and be notified when the next video in this series comes out. If you are watching these later on, I will have a playlist linked to every video that is launched right here, as well as the next episode in the series right here. If you have any questions about this project, materials, process, some stumblings that I went through, or you just want to generally understand where I got some of my information from so that you can combine it with this video and do your own research, please feel free to leave a comment, and like always, I would be more than happy to respond and give you as much information as I can. I do think it needs a nice little deck right here to just tie everything together, so look out for that video in the future as well. And I'll see you guys next time on whatever it is that I'm building. Bye.